Välkommen alla sammen. Got another video for you here on the road, just in my hotel room, but I got a cool little setup here with my new microphone. Hope the sound is all right. And I got a good video with some sources for you on this one too, because I had been doing the research on this for a couple weeks. I had a talk with someone and they asked, is blood necessary when we are performing our blots in the Norse tradition? Well, the answer is yes, according to all the historical sources and also many other pagan religions around the world. That's what I'm going over in this video, the Norse sources, and of course, we're not going to be able to get these, completely historically accurate like they did 1,000 years ago, but in this video at least you're going to understand that this was actually done for a spiritual purpose, and then we can adapt that to today in whatever way we see fit. So yeah, these are all the records that we have of a pagan offering or some sort of pagan spiritual practice that has to do with blood. First, we can speak about the poetic Edda poem Hyndluljóð, where the goddess Freyja commends the human Ottar for worshipping her so well by building a pile of stones, or Hörgur, the Norse altar, and that's where the offerings were given, and Ottar was reddening the stones with blood. So this is something we'll see in almost all the records of a blot that we have. We see another one in Hervarar saga. There's two here actually. In the first one, there was the king's daughter called Alfhildir, and she was basically leading the Disa blot, the blot to the Disir, the female spirits. And she was also reddening the Hörgur with blood in this source. Later on in that source too, it speaks about a sacrifice at the famous temple of Uppsala, where they sacrificed a horse at the evergreen tree, and they smeared the evergreen tree with blood. We have another one in Haakon the Good saga, a long description, pretty detailed of a blot here, but one part of it was when they sacrificed the horses and cattle, and the blood was collected into bowls called hlaut bowls, and hlaut staves were made. They're basically like twigs that you would use to sprinkle blood all over the place like that. So they dip it in, splatter it all over the place, all over the walls, all over the altar, all the shit all over the place outside of the temple, and they even sprinkled the blood on each other. So in this case, it was not just the altar that was reddened with blood, it was everything in this account of a pagan offering. So those are just a few examples of the blots. We can also speak about some other things. One source in Landnámabók, it writes how there was a law during the early days of Iceland after the settlement, and that the Goði of the Althing, which was the religious leader or kind of the, chieftain of the whole country and kind of presided over political matters and all those types of things. And it was a law written down that he had to redden his arm ring with ox blood. And this really isn't a sacrifice, it's the Althing. So it would have been like the yearly meeting where they meet to discuss legal trials and land disputes and, things like that. So it had nothing to do with a sacrifice here. Another example we have in Olav tryygvassons saga. There's a famous part where Olav is surrounded by the Swedish and Norwegian and Danish armies at the Battle of Svolder, about to fight. And he's just talking shit. He's yelling at all of them, talking shit to the Danes and the Norwegians and the Swedes. He said, oh, there's no need to fear those horse eaters. They would have a better luck licking their sacrificial bowls. So the sacrificial bowls, of course, was what the blood was collected in, like I spoke about in the previous source. And in this type of thing, there's actually a lot of sources that speak about something like this. In the Norse mythology especially, drinking the blood of an enemy or drinking the blood of a killed enemy like the dragon or the serpent that the hero just killed, or it can also be mixed into a sacred mead drink, something like that. When you mix that and drink the blood, both of these things seem to lead to some sort of power or magical ability for the hero who is drinking these things. Drinking the blood, in my opinion, it was for sure part of the blot. We have seen this in other places in the world too, where people drink the blood and they work themselves up into a frenzy to get some sort of spiritual benefit. I'll make a whole video on the drinking of the blood, because that definitely that has some sources, but it also has some interpretations and even some conspiracy theories in there from different places around the world. So some people are probably not going to like that one. I'm just keeping this one source based. And we can also finally speak about runes or staves. In the Norse tradition, it's always said to be carved like runes or symbols and then reddened, right? We have this in a few historical sagas, like Egils saga, where he carves the runes on his drinking horn and then he reddens it with his own blood. This was to prevent himself from getting poisoned. We have another source, Vita Ansgari, which was a bishop who noted how the Scandinavians would cast lots with symbols marked in blood in order to give their divination. Some people think that this is, rune reading, but I don't know about that one. That's just a couple from the Viking Age, but there are many, many more. We can even speak about one example going all the way back to the Germanic tribal era. Tacitus, Germania, he describes almost the exact same thing 700 years before the Viking Age. So this is the Vikings' ancestors, and they were still doing this, carving symbols out on wooden twigs and throwing them out to give their divination. But we can also speak about all these archaeological finds, the rune carvings, the rock art from thousands of years before the Viking Age. They're all colored with red. So this is without a doubt a tradition that goes back for our people to back thousands of years. So we can also see the evidence in the language too. It's one important thing to bring up. The modern German word for magic, which is Zauber, it comes from the Old High German Zuba and has a parallel word in Old English, and both kind of derive from the original word having to do something with the act of painting or coloring something red. So the modern word for magic originally had connections to just coloring something red. So as you can see from that, it seems like blood isn't always necessary, actually. Maybe it can be just some sort of red coloring the object with red. Maybe that's enough, but who knows for sure. So what is the reason for all of this? It's pretty simple, really. Most of you probably know this already. Blood is believed not just by the Norse, not just by ancient Europeans, but by tribal cultures all around the world. Blood is believed to contain some of our life force, right? So when ancient peoples put blood on something, it was believed to give that object life. A perfect example of sympathetic magic, like you can put life into a tree by smearing it with blood. You can put life into a rock, give that rock some life by smearing it with blood, or an altar to wake up any spirits that are living in there. You can put blood on some runes that you carved in order to make them magic and bring that magic to life. You can put blood on an arm ring, as we saw in Iceland, like the Godi. Arm rings are usually, they have something to do with oaths taken and sworn, so maybe this tradition of reddening the arm ring with blood was in order to awaken or maybe activate the oath that the Godi took when he took the job to preside over the all things, something like that, who knows. But we can also say that it may not have to be done in blood all the time. Red coloring was definitely also used, and this would be a way kind of to trick the spirits into believing that it was blood in order for humans to get the spirits to create the desired effect. Again, this is something done all over the world, especially it's an example of sympathetic magic, but it's especially done in very primitive animist cultures. They have more of a tendency to intimidate or trick the spirits or even their own gods into doing something for them. Whereas when a culture later on evolves into a polytheist society, those cultures have a tendency to worship and honor the gods and spirits there. They don't try any trickery and things like that like animist peoples do. That could be a reason why in the Viking Age and in the polytheist age, they definitely used their own blood, or they used an animal's blood, they used real blood. But in previous ages, in the Germanic tribal age or in the Bronze Age, where a lot of these rock carvings are from, they seem to just use red coloring. So that's about it. That's what the sources say. A few different things, but it does seem like blood or the color red is very important for spiritual activities. You can do whatever you want, but that's how I do it. In my blots, I always redden the altar with blood. if I can find it. Sometimes finding animal blood is a bit difficult, and if I carve any runes or staves, I use the color red. And yeah, also as you can see on my online shop, all of my logos are made in red, all of my staves and runes are in red and will always be, so you can check out my online shop if you like. There's some cool things now, and lots more awesome things coming soon. So yeah, give all that a try in your own practice, see if it helps, but that's all I have for you today. Vi ses nästa gång.